Oh, hello. Happy holidays, my friends. It is I, Pixel Dan. I was just sitting here pretending that I didn't set this camera up and turn it on, enjoying some eggnog as we get closer and closer to the big day. It's almost Christmas time, my friends, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to look back at my back catalog. Yeah. Take a look at my back catalog of videos and put together a cool compilation of all of my Christmas-themed episodes. I've talked about Christmas toy memories on this channel in the past. I've also done a few episodes of Toy Explosion that are all Christmas-themed, and now I'm presenting them here to enjoy in a bingeable format all together. So sit back, relax, pour yourself a glass of your favorite eggnog or chocolate milk or your favorite holiday beverage and watch some of my favorite toy videos and the ever-changing face of Pixel Dan, as you're going to see. Enjoy, my friends. Happy holidays. Noggy. So one of the Christmas memories that I still remember to this day is the year that I received the Masters of the Universe Hordak action figure. This is kind of a funny story, and it's so weird that it has stuck with me all these years, but at this time, this would have been 1985 when Hordak came out. So it would have been probably 85, 86-ish. And of course, I had tons of Masters of the Universe action figures already. I was real big into the line. Absolutely loved it. I mean, it was just my thing at this point. And leading up to Christmas, you see all those commercials on TV that are introducing the evil Horde and Hordak. And at that time, of course, that's one of the things that I was telling my mom and dad that I wanted for Christmas. I want Hordak. I gotta have Hordak. Let me please get a Hordak.
The ultimate threat to the universe is here.
I am Hordak, and this is my evil horde.
Reach! Antenna!
Your evil even scares me, Hordak, my friend. The evil horde has no friends.
The Evil Horde, new from the Masters of the Universe collection. All figures each sold separately.
Get me out of here!
From Mattel.
Well, this is the part of the story that takes a bit of a weird turn, because my dad, this has always kind of been his thing. He likes to joke about this kind of stuff, and especially when it came to the toys and the action figures. He grew up, I guess, playing with cars and Hot Wheels. So, our generation was the generation that got real big into action figures. That was what the 80s kids were. So to him, that was always a little like one of those things where he was like, playing with the dolls. I got that a lot when I was a kid, but it was always like in good fun. So when I was telling him that I wanted Hordak for Christmas, jokingly, he said, "No, you don't want Hordak." And I would argue with him, "Yeah, I do want Hordak, Dad. I want Hordak." He would say, "No, you don't want Hordak. Because if you get Hordak, Hordak's going to come alive while you're asleep, and he's going to haunt you. He's going to haunt your dreams. Hordak's going to come alive and get you." I don't know if those are the exact words he said, but it was something along those lines. And I don't know if he realized it at the time, but he completely terrified me. Suddenly, I was scared to death of Hordak. So Christmas Day rolls around. I opened all of my presents from Santa Claus. Got a bunch of great stuff, I'm sure. It's funny because this is the one memory that stands out the most from Christmas. So I don't even remember exactly everything else I got that year. But I do remember that just like every year, after we finished opening up presents from Santa Claus at home, we went to visit my grandparents. And as we're sitting in my grandma and grandpa's living room, we're opening up presents, I get handed a gift. I rip the paper off the perfect way, like I folded it open just like this, and I look down, and staring back at me is Hordak. And immediately, I threw the paper back closed over Hordak, I pushed the gift away from me, and I looked up in terror because now I've got this terrifying Hordak figure. And I remember looking straight up at my dad, and he was like, "It's okay." It might have been at that moment that he realized that he had scared me, because he was like, "It's okay, open it up, that's really cool." And the funny thing is I don't remember being scared of it ever again after that moment. I opened it, I played with it. For many years to come, he was part of my collection. But it's just so funny that of all the Christmases I had growing up, one of those toy memories that still stands out to me this day is the time I was scared of Hordak. Another Christmas toy memory that really stands out in my mind still is the year that I first got my Star Trek The Next Generation action figures from Playmates Toys. So Star Trek The Next Generation is one of those TV series that I got very, very into in my youth. Still to this day, I consider myself a very big Star Trek fan, and The Next Generation always holds this very special, very nostalgic place in my heart. I really, really love that series. And I honestly think that part of the reason I enjoy Star Trek The Next Generation so much is that I remember that being a show that I watched very religiously with my dad. It's something that we both shared a love for together. In fact, there were multiple members of my family that loved this show. My dad and his mom, my grandmother, and my aunt, we all loved Star Trek The Next Generation. So I even remember, not only did I get to stay up every night and watch Star Trek with my dad before I went to bed, but when we would go to visit my grandparents, we would turn Star Trek on and watch it together. It was one of those weird, crazy phenomenons for me, because nothing I had really been super interested in at that point had been something that I'd shared with my dad or even my grandma. So I think that's one of the reasons that I like Star Trek so very much.
Computer subspace transmission to Starfleet Command from Enterprise. Stardate 45481.4. It's a single blast. Source unknown. Lieutenant Worf checks weapon systems. Captain Picard orders full shields from Lieutenant LaForge in engineering. Suddenly there is an alien presence on the ship. It's one of the Borg, a hostile robotic life form. Commander Riker returns phaser fire.
Star Trek The Next Generation action figures from Playmates.
So I've already told a story in a previous video about the year that my dad terrified me of Hordak. This is the year that I think my dad kind of redeems himself, because going into Christmas of probably 1992, this would have been when the first line of Star Trek figures were released from Playmates Toys. Going into Christmas, this isn't something that I necessarily expected to get, but I was huge into Star Trek at the time, so it was just an absolute perfect thing, and I don't know why I never thought of it going into Christmas morning. But the reason that this stands out to me so much is I still remember tearing through presents underneath the Christmas tree, and I'm sure you've all been in this position before. You probably all remember when you were kids. You kind of steered clear of the boxes that were obviously boxes containing clothes, right? Because we all knew which boxes had clothes in them. They were all very specifically shaped. They were meant to hold clothes. You knew which ones were your toys that were wrapped up in wrapping paper and which ones had clothes. So, as a kid, of course, those were the presents I was least interested in. I wanted to open toys. Well, there were probably two or three of these boxes wrapped under the tree with all my presents that, well, I thought were obviously boxes of clothes. And so I was avoiding them. I was opening other things. And I remember my dad kind of saying, "Hey, why don't you open these?" So reluctantly, I finally opened up the box, took off the paper. I took the lid off the box, fully expecting to see some t-shirts or some underwear or some socks or something that, I wasn't going to be excited to get. But instead, the box was full of a couple, maybe up to 4, Star Trek The Next Generation figures from Playmates. And as a collector, you guys all know now how we stack card backs, right? We stack them to kind of fit them in the totes better. That's how they were stacked in these clothing boxes. So they were totally incognito. I was blown away. I couldn't believe that I had opened these up and I got these Star Trek figures. So I got tons of the figures. Also that same Christmas, I got the shuttlecraft. And then later on when we went to my grandmother's house, my grandma got me the transporter play set. So it turned out to be this huge Star Trek The Next Generation Christmas. And I think one of the things that, again, was so great is that while I was opening these and playing with them, my dad was just as excited as me. I mean, we were playing with them together. He was looking at them all. If you've collected these, you might remember that there's little serial numbers printed on the bottom of the feet. He thought that was a big deal. Obviously, those toys are very cheap now, but, you know, it was something fun and unique at the time. And to this day, of all the toys that I've got in my collection, I have very few things that are still in my collection from my childhood. And I still have every single one of those Star Trek figures I got that year. I know that there were a lot of Christmases. There were probably a couple in a row where I got a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toys. But through all those years, I have one specific memory that I remember very fondly. So huge into Ninja Turtles, right? Who wasn't at that time? I absolutely loved my Ninja Turtles toys. And like I said, I'm sure that there were multiple Christmases where I got a lot of Turtles toys. And I know that there's this one photo from my childhood that I love. It's such a great photo. It's an image of me at my grandma's house, and I had just opened up the Technodrome playset on Christmas morning. And in that photo, you can even see Krang's android body kind of laying on the floor next to me. So obviously that was an amazing Christmas, because to this day, the Technodrome is still my all-time favorite playset. But despite that awesome Christmas photo, I have this one memory that still lingers in my head. This would have been Christmas 1990 or 1991. And the Turtles line had been out for a little bit. I already had a good collection building up. But as you probably remember, one of the things about that original toy line is that there were so many versions of the Turtles that were released. All these wacky variations. Lots of different jobs or weird costumes that they were wearing. Well, I remember seeing commercials leading up to Christmas Day for the wave of Turtles figures that included the Sewer Samurai Leonardo, Undercover Donatello, and specifically Raph the Space Cadet and Mike the Sewer Surfer.
Now's the time to strike!
Who will stop Shredder? Leonardo can't, he's off in the Far East. And Michelangelo can't, cause he's sewer surfing down under. Wipe out! And Raphael's on maneuvers in orbit, a total space cadet.
There's no stopping me!
But wait, it's Donatello. He's been in disguise all this time, and so were the rest of the Turtles. It was all a trap for Shredder.
Don't you just love it when the foot trips up?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Playmates.
Those two figures there at the end, Raph the Space Cadet and Mike the Sewer Surfer, struck a chord with me immediately. I don't know what it is about those two, but I really wanted those two action figures. Now, this was already very, very close to Christmas, I remember, when this came about. So we were getting ready. This was Christmas Eve. We're getting ready, to go to bed at night, doing our nightly rituals, getting ready for Christmas morning the next day. Of course, we always did the plate of cookies for Santa Claus, left him the glass of milk. Well, on this particular Christmas, and I think I did this at a few Christmases, but I remember this one specifically, I decided I was going to write Santa Claus a letter to leave with the cookies. And I wrote on this note, I don't remember exactly what it said, but I know that within this note, I specifically asked Santa Claus to please, if he's going to leave me any presents, leave me Raph the Space Cadet and Mikey the Sewer Surfer. I wanted these action figures so bad, but it was so close to Christmas that I was so worried that I wasn't going to get them. So it was like a last-ditch effort. I was like, if I leave Santa Claus a note right here on Christmas Eve, maybe I'll get lucky enough and he'll leave these 2 figures under the tree for me. It's amazing that that's the line of thinking that I had. But Christmas morning rolled around. I woke up, I opened my presents, and as I said at the beginning, I'm certain I got so many great presents that year. But you know what I definitely did get? Raph the Space Cadet and Mikey the Sewer Surfer were laying under that tree waiting for me that morning. It was, as far as I was concerned, it was a Christmas miracle. My letter to Santa had worked, and I got these 2 figures. And to this day, you know, you think about all the crazy, wacky variants of Turtles, but to this day, those 2 figures are very, very special to me in the original line. And it all goes back to this specific memory. During the holiday season, nostalgic feelings and memories of toys from the past are usually at their highest. And it makes perfect sense. Many of us got some of our favorite childhood toys on Christmas morning, so it's very easy to tie that happy feeling to the season. The toy companies know this. Of course they do. It's their job to sell toys, and there's no better time of the year to do it. The marketing done during the Christmas season is typically at its strongest, finding all sorts of ways to wrangle the kids' attention so that it's their toys being begged for to be under the Christmas tree. So what's the best method? Commercials on TV during cartoons? Attention-grabbing store displays? YouTube videos? Well, back in 1993, Mattel had a different idea. McDonald's. We're taking a look back at the memorable Totally Toy Holiday Happy Meal promotion today on Toysplosion.
To start the holidays sooner, you could make your own reindeer.
Here, Fluffy.
Or you can head to McDonald's for some way cool miniature Mattel toys, like Polly Pocket or the Attack Pack. 9 in all, one with each Totally Toy Happy Meal you buy.
I'm Fluffy. Ho.
The McDonald's Happy Meal has long been a way to provide a meal for children that includes a fun surprise toy. That surprise, of course, typically works as a promotional tool, usually for a movie that's currently in theaters. The first of these came in 1979 to promote Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and it's been around as a promotional tool ever since. Toy company Mattel became a staple partner of the McDonald's Happy Meal in the 1990s. In 1991, they did their first ever Happy Meal Barbie and Hot Wheels promotion. This was a great way to give kids a small piece of Mattel's 2 biggest toy properties, hopefully enticing them to go to the store to eventually buy the real deal. The Barbie Hot Wheels Happy Meals became an annual tradition of the restaurants for many years. Then, in 1993, Mattel actually did something kind of brilliant. They partnered again with McDonald's for a brand new Happy Meal promotion that would take place during the holiday shopping season. It was called Totally Toy Holiday, where each Happy Meal would give the kid a small toy from the many toy lines that Mattel was pushing for the holiday season. While this was basically a way of advertising their hot holiday items, they honestly proved to be some of the most memorable Happy Meal toys, personally, from my childhood. So let's take a closer look at what was included in Mattel's Totally Toy Holiday Happy Meals. Of course, we can't have Mattel Happy Meal toys without Hot Wheels. And in 1993, Mattel was promoting several variations of their Hot Wheels brand. This here is from their new Tattoo Machines lineup. Essentially, these were just regular Hot Wheel cars with a design stamped on the car that sort of looked like a tattoo. Capitalizing on the popularity of temporary tattoos in the early 90s, each car came with a sheet of matching tattoos that you could apply to your hand or your arm using water. Like other Happy Meal Hot Wheels, this one is made entirely of plastic, with no die-cast parts like the store-bought Hot Wheels. But the Gator design is pretty great, and I'm willing to bet that many of you out there had this exact car. Since it was in a Happy Meal, even if you weren't a kid that collected Hot Wheels, the chances are pretty high that you had this one car. Sally Secrets was a doll that focused on crafts. The doll had many secret action features, all of which were perfect for scrapbooks or diaries. Stamps, stickers, you name it, they were all included on this doll. The mini versions that came in the Happy Meal came in both white and black skin tones, and also included a secret craft action feature just on a much smaller scale. The soles of her shoes work like a hole puncher, allowing you to punch star and heart-shaped holes in pieces of paper. Also included in the baggie with the figure is a small sheet of stickers, allowing you to make a sweet little card like I did here. I'm so talented. The full-size Lil Miss Candy Stripes doll from Mattel had a magic candy stripe action feature, where using water would make stripes appear in her hair. This smaller version is quite a bit different. She's an unarticulated hollow plastic figure that also includes a plastic candy cane striped dress that just snaps on over her normal green dress. Honestly, it's probably the least impressive of all of the Totally Toy Happy Meal toys, as all of the others seem to do a much better job of capturing the spirit of their main toy's action feature. Key-Force was a really interesting line of vehicles from Mattel. The gimmick revolved around small keys, as the name suggests. These keys could plug into the vehicles and with a twist, transforms them into machines ready to do battle. They are actually really impressive, and while I never had any of them myself as a kid, the commercials did a really great job of getting me to want them. Mattel must have really wanted to push this particular line because we get 2 different Key-Force vehicles available with these Happy Meals. Turning the key on top of this red car causes the doors to fly open DeLorean style, revealing some laser guns hiding within. Twisting the key on the back of this black truck reveals hidden missiles. These of course are much more basic compared to the mainline versions, but it does a wonderful job of demonstrating the action feature and possibly enticing kids to go for the bigger versions. As a side note, the under 3 toy for the Totally Toy Holiday series is this red Key-Force car. It comes in a bag identified as an under 3 toy, but the car itself seems exactly the same as the normal bagged version. The colors are slightly different, but that might just be the plastic fading, honestly. The action features are exactly the same. Magic Nursery was a line of dolls with the gimmick of not knowing if it was a boy or a girl until you brought the baby home and used water to open up the included care package. This would reveal a birth certificate and an outfit for the baby. Like with that main line of dolls, the Happy Meal versions played up on not knowing if you were getting a boy or a girl. Instead of dissolving a care package, the dolls came inside of blind bags, so you couldn't see what was inside. Opening these blind bags would either reveal a boy doll wearing a blue onesie, or a girl doll wearing a pink onesie. Yep, that's right, blind bags before blind bags were a popular thing. And just like with Key-Force, Magic Nursery also had an under 3 version. The bag was different, identifying it as an under 3 toy, but the doll inside is exactly the same. Attack Pack was an awesome Hot Wheels spin-off line in which all of the cars transformed into beasts at the push of a button, revealing chomping jaws filled with teeth. This Happy Meal version was essentially just a shrunken down version, but it retained the exact action feature of the mainline vehicles. It's far less detailed than those larger versions found at retail, but honestly, it's still just as rad. And now we're getting to what I consider 2 of the most memorable toys from this particular series. Polly Pocket was huge in the 90s. These small compacts would open up to reveal tiny worlds inside with miniature figures and accessories. They were super creative. The McDonald's versions maintain the spirit of the mainline compacts with a Christmas wreath design on the outside that opens up into a small living room scene complete with a Christmas tree. Polly can be found inside as well. She looks very much like the retail versions, but this Polly was not removable. Instead, by turning the dial on the bottom of the compact, Polly would dance around her Christmas tree. Mighty Max was essentially the boys' version of Polly Pocket. The concept was the same, but his compacts opened up to reveal magical worlds filled with monsters to do battle with. The design of this Happy Meal version is fantastic, featuring the head of an evil Yeti that was very much like what you'd see on the actual Mighty Max horror heads released in stores. Opening it up revealed a small icy world. On the background you can see some little ice demons of sorts guarding some golden treasure. On the lower portion is a giant Yeti monster with Max standing beside him. Now Max is mostly unpainted and he's non-removable, featuring a similar action feature as to what we saw on the Polly Pocket set. Turning the dial on the bottom makes Max run circles around the evil Yeti. There's not a ton going on here, but I loved this as a kid, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It made me want more Mighty Max playsets. Lastly, we have to talk about Barbie, Mattel's hottest item. She was already no stranger to Happy Meals, but unfortunately, things would not go her way when it came time for Totally Toy Holiday. You see, this small Barbie snow globe was recalled before the promotion even got started. A defect in the dome caused it to leak, so finding these with liquid inside is very rare. In fact, finding this at all is incredibly difficult. The recall happened before the promotion even started, so while they are out there, they're a lot harder to find as a result. You can see her featured in the in-store promo material, but she did not appear in the toy commercial. And she actually fetches a pretty penny on the aftermarket even today. Mattel's Totally Toy Holiday promotion was honestly a pretty smart one. While a lot of times the Happy Meal toys are used to promote a movie, Mattel took this opportunity to promote what they considered to be their hot holiday items for the season. Much like a movie trailer, these smaller versions of their popular toys would act sort of like a teaser, with hopes that kids would then ask their parents for the real versions to be under the tree come Christmas morning. 1993 wasn't the only time Mattel did a promotion like this either. Totally Toy Holiday returned in 1995. This version gave us new toys to beg our parents for come Christmas morning. Some of the toys included this time were an early version of Fisher-Price Imaginext figures, made of hollow plastic and featuring very limited articulation. The return of Polly Pocket in a new house with a similar dancing feature as before, as well as the return of Mighty Max. This time, he came in an even cooler ice crystal monster head. The inside is a lot different this time around, featuring an odd mechanic where Max just sort of falls up and down, but that ice crystal head sculpt is amazing. I wish there was a full Mighty Max playset that looked like this one. Oh, and even Barbie made the cut this time, going for a sleigh ride through a winter wonderland. Yes, this was nothing more than a giant commercial for Mattel toys, but let's be real, all Happy Meals are a commercial for something. Heck, most cartoons and movies that we watch were commercials for toys. But you know what? This set of toys is still incredibly creative. And they must have left an impression, not just on me, but on many kids who grew up with this era. Because Mattel's Totally Toy Holiday is still one of the more memorable Happy Meal promotions of the 1990s. This other Christmas memory I have that just really, really sticks in my mind, one of those things I always think about when I think of Christmas morning, would have been probably Christmas of, it had to have been 86 or 87. It was late 80s for sure. This particular Christmas, we weren't at my house. We actually were at my grandmother's house. We went to visit them for the entire Christmas weekend, and we did something that we don't normally do, and we actually stayed there on Christmas Eve, which means Christmas morning was gonna happen at my grandma's house. And I do remember specifically being a little worried that Santa wasn't gonna find us. I remember my parents reassuring me that Santa knows where you are. Don't worry, Santa's gonna come here and bring you your presents. And it was one of those things I was just a little worried about, but you know, that's like a typical thing. What kid wouldn't be worried that Santa may not find you if you're not in your usual bed? But it was really cool because I've always loved my grandma's house. And one thing that my grandma had that I didn't in my house growing up was she had stairs because it was a 2-story home, and her Christmas tree this year was downstairs. So I remember very vividly still waking up on Christmas morning and actually getting to walk down the stairs and seeing the Christmas tree as I'm walking downstairs with all the presents under it. It's just one of those amazing, like, one of those things you would see in a movie, right? A Christmas movie. That's how the memory plays in my head, for sure. So we get up on Christmas morning, we get to go down those stairs. You see that tree, and it's just all the presents have exploded underneath the tree. It was amazing. Santa had not forgotten us. It was very exciting. But this is the part I remember of that Christmas the most. All of the presents under the tree, standing on top of the boxes, were Kenner's Real Ghostbusters action figures, the 4 main Ghostbusters. And they were all standing on the boxes, and they all had their proton packs strapped to their backs, and all of them were busting their little companion ghosts that come packaged with them.
There's something strange in the neighborhood.
So who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters!
Each sold separately.
Have no fear. Venkman, Steph, and Spengler are here. So are these ghosts. They've got ectoplasm. We've been gooped. Now what? Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Let's show this pile of dessert who's boss. Activate Neutrona Blaster. We ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Peter Venkman, Ectoplasm, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and other figures each sold separately. Ghostbusters, new from Kenner.
It was amazing. So it was one of those times where Santa delivered me action figures outside of the packaging, which happens sometimes. But, you know, it really created an awesome memory for me because, you know, this was late 80s. I was a little kid. But that memory, that vision is still in my head, seeing the Ghostbusters standing on presents under the Christmas tree, blasting ghosts. I wish I had some actual photos of that setup, but of course, pictures don't get taken of that before you start tearing into the presents. I have a few pictures where you can see other Ghostbusters toys laying on the floor that year from my grandma's house. I think I also got the ghost trap and some other stuff. But it's amazing. And I was way into the Kenner Ghostbusters toy line for many years after that. I love the cartoon series. And it's really cool because it's like my very first memory of the real Ghostbusters goes all the way back to that Christmas morning when they were busting ghosts under the Christmas tree. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were a part of several Christmases for me growing up. I mean, no doubt about it. The Turtles were huge for years, and of course, as a kid growing right up during it, they were massively successful, and I wanted all of them in my collection. So every year when Christmas rolled around, I was always asking for more Turtles toys. I think I've even shown you guys pictures before of the Christmas where I got like the Technodrome playset and Krang's android body, and that was really great, but that was a little bit further along than the story I'm gonna tell today. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this particular Christmas would have been the very first year, or maybe year 2, but probably somewhere right there around the beginning when I first started getting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures. This particular Christmas morning, I had already opened up several presents, including a bunch of TMNT action figures. I can't remember specifically which other ones I got that year, but this had to have been Christmas of '89 or 90. It was probably one of those two Christmases. So you can kind of picture what the toy line was at the time and probably guess the figures I was getting for Christmas.
Krang, the master brain from Dimension X, ally of the evil Shredder and Baxter Stockman, the wickedly winged scientists are out to destroy the Ninja Turtles. Right, Ace-Duck, the Turtles' tough feathered friend, along with Dingus Frog, who's always hopping for action, always ready to fight on the side of the Turtles.
You'll be riveted to your seat.
From Playmate.
But this is where the one specific memory, it's so weird that the things that you remember sometimes. The one specific memory I have from the Christmas morning where I was getting a bunch of Ninja Turtles toys. I have a little brother. He's about 4 years younger than me. So there were a lot of times growing up, if any of you have siblings, you probably know what this is like. A lot of times while growing up, we shared a lot of toys. A lot of the things that I collected ended up being things that he also collected and played with, because that's just the way it worked. It's easier for parents to buy, both sets of kids the same kind of toys, so they've got a lot of things to play with. But I was the one who was really into Turtles here at the beginning, and I'm the one that asked for a bunch of Ninja Turtles figures, and I got a bunch of Ninja Turtles figures. And then my brother, while opening up his presents, he tears open the paper, and there was one of the figures I had asked for, Krang. This was the original Krang figure that came out, which I think was 89-ish, maybe 90. This is the one, of course, that had the bubble walker. Not the android body one. I got that at a later Christmas. This was the Bubble Walker Krang, the original one. And it was a figure that I wanted, and there was my brother opening it up for him, not for me. And I did that thing where I checked to see if I also got it, because sometimes we got doubles so that we wouldn't fight over the toys. But sure enough, I did not get Krang with my pile of turtles. He got it with his. And I vividly remember actually saying, "Are you sure that wasn't for me?" And checking the torn paper to see if it wasn't my name on there, but nope, it was his name. And I was certain that there had to have been some sort of mistake. I remember asking my parents, I was like, "Was that supposed to be for me?" And they were like, no, that's your brother's, And I was miffed. I was really, really annoyed that my little brother got Krang and I didn't. Now, truth be told, he ended up going on to have just as many Turtles toys as me. So, maybe this was the beginning or what kickstarted it, but he grew up in the same era and he was 4 years younger, but he was right there for Turtle Mania too. And we ended up playing with all of our Turtle toys together while I was growing up. But I'll be perfectly honest. To this very day, I am certain that my parents made a mistake. That Krang was meant for me. Just about every year at Christmas time, there's that one hot toy item that everyone is trying to get. From Beanie Babies to Tickle Me Elmo, from Furby to the Nintendo Wii, it seems like every generation has one. But nothing, and I mean nothing, can compare to the sheer insanity that broke out all over the country for one line of dolls. It was the original Black Friday. What was that line of dolls? You know exactly the line that I'm talking about. Let's talk about the Cabbage Patch Riots of 1983 today on Toysplosion.
The Cabbage Patch Kids. Some of this year's babies have a first tooth.
Is she okay, Doc?
She's just teething.
What a relief.
Brand new hairstyles.
What lovely hair. Where does she have it done?
It's natural.
It's natural.
And some kids even wear eyeglasses.
Like 'em?
Like them. I love them.
They're one of a kind. They're Cabbage Patch Kids. You can get them all of your life.
So before we get into the fist fights over children's toys from 1983, let's learn a little bit about the Cabbage Patch dolls. The dolls were registered in the United States Copyright Office in 1978 by Xavier Roberts, originally as The Little People, not to be confused with the line of small figures and playsets by Fisher-Price. These original Little People dolls were all one of a kind, each individually hand-stitched and made out of cloth and yarn. Xavier said that his dolls weren't for sale, but rather up for adoption. Each doll was different, with its own name and even its own individual birth certificate. These dolls were first sold only at places like craft shows, but later were sold out of the Babyland General Hospital in Cleveland, Georgia, an old medical clinic that Xavier essentially turned into a toy store. Here you can see the dolls being born in the Cabbage Patch, as well as have the employees perform checkups before adopting the baby and bringing it home. Babyland General Hospital is even still open to this day and is still visited by die-hard Cabbage Patch fans. In 1982, toy company Coleco licensed the dolls for mass production, changing the construction of the dolls to now include the large vinyl heads that they are known for now, and officially changing their name to Cabbage Patch Dolls. Maintaining the feature of each doll being different, Coleco had 9 different head types that would be randomly matched with various bodies, and each still had its own name and its own individual birth certificate. Coleco knew that they had something special, but as the 1983 Christmas shopping season approached, they'd soon realize that even they had underestimated just how special.
What do we tell our little girl Christmas morning? What are we supposed to say? You've been good, but Santa ran short?
Those who can't get their own have been known to snatch from others.
Where is he? Do you see her? Is that what Christmas is about?
I agree with you 100%.
A full-grown woman taking a doll out of a child's hand?
It was insanity. Coleco's supply could not match the high demand, and soon people all across the nation found themselves racing to stores and fighting with each other just to ensure that their kids could get the toy that they wanted for Christmas. The stories are well documented. The media, of course, was all over this strange phenomenon. But I happen to know someone who was there, who was on the front lines in the madness. My mom, Tina Erdley. So I sat down to talk to her to learn all about her experiences with the Cabbage Patch Riots.
Venture was the store I was working at that time, and wow, crazy. Yeah. Well, it was, I guess it's about a month before Christmas. We were getting all the things ready for Christmas and everything and that, and we had a staff meeting, and the manager is like, well, supposedly this new item, Cabbage Patch dolls, are real popular, so we're going to have to set up a special area for them and everything and that. Headquarters wants us to put an area set up with just the Cabbage Patch dolls so people can, pick them up and that. And we're like, oh, okay, nobody really thinking, it's not going to be crazy.
I had no idea what was in store.
No. We had a notification out that we had the Cabbage Patch dolls, and it was already starting where people were trying to find these dolls, and we're like, we might have people in here. And so it was on a Sunday when they had breaks and that we had it out that we had the Cabbage Patch dolls. And that day, I will never forget, I was standing behind the service desk, the store wasn't open yet, and we were getting registers set up, and I looked out the door, and I'm like, holy cow, that's quite a few people standing out there. And I called the manager up, and he comes up, and he's like, why is there so many people out there? And I go, that's why you're up here. I don't know what's going on. Well, he ended up calling security down and everything, and one of the guys went out from the back and come around to find out, why everybody was there, and he comes back in and goes, oh my gosh, he said they're here for the dolls.
Wow.
And we're like, oh my gosh. Well, more of that, we're getting ready, and I'm looking out the doors because the doors are right in front of my desk. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And the crowd is just getting bigger and bigger. And they're pushing up against the doors. And you can see the doors doing this. And you're thinking, oh crap, what's going to happen? And so the manager's like, we're going to have to open now. He says, are you guys ready? And we're like, okay. Well, before the doors open, I grabbed all my checkers and said, get over here. Grabbed all the girls that were working that morning and got them behind the service desk and closed the door. It's like, you guys should stay here until we find out what's going to happen. They opened the doors, and these people just swarmed in. They were pushing, they were shoving, trying to get through the doors. And I mean, we are all, and the manager and the security guards yelling at them, slow down, quit pushing. And I mean, they're literally just pushing each other out of the way. And we had a sign with the Cabbage Patch doll pointing that way. They knock the sign off and they run over and they're going to the section with the tables. And we have people standing over there. They're jumping out of the way. These people are literally shoving each other, grabbing these dolls, pushing each other down, grabbing them out of each other's hands.
Oh my gosh.
And we're all standing there just looking, going, oh my God, what the heck is going on? It was nuts. It was nuts. We end up calling the police to come over to try to help calm the crowd down. It just got crazy. They get up to the registers, and the girls are at the registers, and they're all just like, what's going on? Because the people that are in line trying to buy them, they got two, and people are grabbing them out of their hands, trying to grab them from the other people because they want these dolls. It was just unbelievable. After they were all gone, people were still coming in that day looking for them. We're like, we're sold out, you know. And everybody just like one big breath, like, holy cow. It was unbelievable. I will never forget that day.
It's funny because these were so popular, but it seems that most people didn't understand why. In fact, most of the adults that were out there buying these seemed to have the same opinion about the way that they looked.
I don't like them. I don't like them. I don't like their faces, but I want one.
As far as I'm concerned, they're the worst looking things I've ever seen. I mean, they are pathetic looking, they're homely.
I don't know what exactly the attachment is. I think they're cute, but kind of funny looking.
I thought it was ugly.
Yeah.
The big head and I don't know, it did not look like a doll that I would want to cuddle up with.
So is it safe to say you didn't understand the hype behind it?
I did not understand the hype behind it. Me and quite a few other people, but I still to this day when I look at it think, how did that happen?
But it didn't matter how they looked. Kids wanted them, and parents wanted to find them, no matter what it took.
I remember when it went down, it's not too far from the registers and that, we hear this high-pitched scream, you know, and we're just like all turning to find out what it was, and these two women had each other by the hair. By the hair, yanking each other's hair, trying to grab this doll between them, fighting over this doll. And they're just screaming and I mean, hands of hair. And we're just like, oh. And so I'm trying to get a hold of, you know, the security to get over there and that. And I grabbed my girl because her register was close to that. And I ran over there and grabbed her and pulled her off her register. And these two women were just fighting each other. And then I remember a gentleman just leaping over this crowd of people and that trying to get to the table. I mean, he was just like flying and that. And the whole time you're standing there in shock with your mouth open going, what's wrong with these people? It's just a doll.
Right. You're at a point now, like you crossed Black Friday, you're only getting maybe 20 in at a time, but did this go all the way up until Christmas Day with people coming in and looking for these things? And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It went all the way through until really when the craze really tried to finally slow down some of that, like the tail end, especially when you get past the Christmas and everything, all of a sudden there's dolls coming in, you know. All of a sudden you're getting all these dolls and you're like, yeah, well, you had them in a warehouse somewhere, you know. And all of a sudden we're getting hundreds at a time and that. We're still selling them, but it's not crazy.
Right.
And that it's finally calmed down to the point people come in and go, oh, can I get more than one? You can take as many as you want now, you know, because it was at that point where...
Eventually, Christmas 1983 came and went. Just like every time this has happened since, supply eventually met demand, and thus interest died down.
Yes, we ended up with quite a few on the shelf.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, you know, it's like, well, you know, what do we do?
Right.
They sold, but they ended up where they cut their orders back and that because they just wasn't selling like they were before. But
amazing.
Yeah, wish we had them during Christmas.
Yeah. In 1988, Coleco filed for bankruptcy, and Hasbro took over the rights to produce Cabbage Patch Kids. In 1994, the rights jumped from Hasbro to Mattel. In 2001, retailer Toys R Us stepped in and began producing the dolls themselves all the way until 2003, when the rights then switched over to Play Along Toys. Jakks Pacific eventually acquired Play Along Toys in 2013, thus also acquiring the rights to Cabbage Patch Kids, which brings us to today, where Cabbage Patch Kids are still being produced, now by toy company Wicked Cool Toys. That makes the Cabbage Patch Kids one of the longest produced doll lines in toy history. And while there may have been crazy Black Friday sales and hot Christmas toys since 1983, nothing has come close to the pure hysteria of those 1983 Cabbage Patch Riots.
I don't like them. I don't like their faces, but I want one.
So have I ever told you the story about when I first got Stinkor as a kid? Maybe you've heard me tell the story on a podcast, but have you ever heard the story straight from my mother? Well, get ready, because you're gonna hear it today. Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and before we get into the fun story of when I first got the Stinkor action figure as a kid, I first want to present a little bit of history of a character who is often considered a misfit in the world of Masters of the Universe. Now, to me that seems a little silly because this whole toy line is essentially made of misfits. There are so many weirdos and oddball characters, but that is what makes Masters of the Universe cool. Stinkor was first released in 1985. The character was an anthropomorphized skunk character, and the figure itself essentially reused the merman body with the mecha neck armor, all recolored to create this brand new skunk character. Throw in a blue version of the Castle Grayskull shield accessory and, well, they called it a day. Except, Stinkor had one special element that we didn't really see in a lot of other figures. He stunk. That's right, Mattel actually injected patchouli into the plastic to give him a fragrant smell that they said was a stinky smell. It's funny because I don't necessarily think he smells all that bad. I mean, I guess it really depends on if you think patchouli is a bad smell, but the fact that he was marketed as a stinky, smelly action figure certainly tricked your brain into thinking that that's not something you wanted to smell. And the fact that he's often referred to as a misfit or a really weird idea is one of those things that, in hindsight, it's funny to laugh at him, but you gotta think in the mindset of the toy companies. There were toys that were very popular at the time on the girls' side called Strawberry Shortcake, and the gimmick there was that they all smelled pleasant, like various fruits, strawberries, grapes, blueberries. So the idea here, kind of keying into that whole gross out mentality we saw in a lot of boys' toys, was what if we do that for boys but make it stinky instead of pleasant smelling? And you can see where the idea of Stinkor really makes sense. So the character was presented to Lou Scheimer and the creators over at Filmation for inclusion in one of the animated series, but once they read the description of the character, apparently everybody at Filmation started laughing and decided that he would never actually make an appearance in either the He-Man or She-Ra cartoons. So his legacy is essentially with the action figure, which we did get the original one in the 80s, and he's made a comeback here and there via Masters of the Universe Classics. But he's got a bit of a different legacy for me personally. You see, when I was first given Stinkor as a child, well, I was terrified of him. And to tell you guys the story of how it all happened, I'm gonna go ahead and turn things over to my mother, Tina Erdley. Let's hear what she has to say about the year I received Stinkor.
Oh boy, you were into He-Man big time. Loved the cartoon. So we used to go on these little excursions, me and you, and Kmart, the store to go to at the time, and hunt for all your different figures. Go through everything, trying to find these figures you wanted. And when you were watching the program and Stinkor was on it, and you were just going on and on and on, you gotta have that figure, gotta have that figure.
Ew! The evil smell of Stinkor will overpower He-Man. We'll trap that skunk.
Man-at-Arms, He-Man, Stinkor, and Skeletor figures each sold separately.
I smell trouble! Men-at-Arms cannot escape the evil smell of Stinkor. Now, He-Man! Smell your own stink, Stinkor! Yar!
Stinkor with real smell is new from the Masters of the Universe collection. Other action figures each sold separately from Mattel.
Couldn't find it anywhere, kept looking. Finally found it one day and I brought it home to you. Never forget the reaction I got from you. I'm so excited, I pulled it out and I said, look, I got Stinkor. You took it, you smelled it, and started screaming, no, no, it stinks, I don't want it, and threw it, no, no. And I'm trying to calm you down because, I mean, you went hysterical. You were just, it's bad, it stinks, get it away, it stinks. And I'm like, okay, great. I said, okay, I'll take it back. And so I take it out of your room and your dad's like, what did you do to that child? I said, I gave him the figure he wanted. I put it in my closet, put it in a bag, and I just put it in a closet. I thought, well, maybe he'll want it later, because it was one of the figures that was hard to get. So I thought, I'm not going to take it back. So I hid it. And then finally you kind of brought it up because he was on the program again, and he was like, I think I want Stinkor. And I'm like, well, you didn't like him. You didn't like him. You didn't like the smell in that. Oh, I think I want to try him again. So I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to do this because you were pretty upset with this figure. And then finally, I was like, well, maybe we'll try this again. And so I found another figure you wanted, which I can't remember which one it was at the time. And I got that, and I got Stinkor, and I put them both together and gave them to you, and you're like, well, he don't stink so bad now. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is really fun.
And I was just okay after
Then
that.
you were okay after that. You opened them up and you started playing with them, and he was fine. But that first reaction was, I mean, you were hysterical. It was so funny. Your dad's like, maybe we shouldn't buy any more of these for him.
So several years ago, as part of my collection, I acquired a Stinkor action figure that was still sealed on his original blister card, but the bottom portion of that had been cut open, so he wasn't mint on card. But the thing that was beautiful about this was that you can kind of peel that open, and the Stinkor smell was perfectly preserved inside. It smelled so strong compared to what most loose Stinkor figures do today. So I've kept it that way, and in fact I put it in an extra clamshell case to kind of preserve the smell, as silly as that sounds. So I wanted to see if my mom actually remembered the way that Stinkor smelled by introducing her to this figure. So do you remember what Stinkor smells like? Do you remember the smell?
Yeah, it did kind of smell like a skunk. It was pretty powerful at the time.
So this guy's a little open here. Why don't you smell him? See if you can remember what he smells like.
Oh,
Do you remember that?
Yes. I don't know why anybody would want this toy. But I think at the time, I mean, this is probably because it's been open for a while, but yours, when you had the package and it's brand new, you could smell.
Really?
And I think that's why you would just, because, I mean, the odor from that, you put it up and you can actually smell how strong it was. Yeah, and,
I was just scared.
and you just went staring. Ah!
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It was fun. I thought I traumatized you.
So there you have it. For some reason, the smell of Stinkor terrified me. I didn't want anything to do with that action figure when she first handed it to me, even though it's something that I asked her to buy for me. I really couldn't tell you what was going through my mind at the time because I have no idea. But I remember this. This is one of those memories that vividly remains in my brain. I can remember the day that she handed me that toy, me looking at it and bursting into tears, telling her to get it away from me. But I honestly can't tell you why I felt the way I did. And you know what? Eventually, I did ask for that Stinkor again, and it became one of my favorite figures. To this day, I still love Stinkor. And maybe it has something to do with that silly memory that I still have. I think the memories is part of what makes collecting these figures so much fun. Remembering the times that we had with them as kids, and even when it's the silly memories like being afraid of an action feature. Now, one of the things that I thought was really cool while talking to my mom about this is that not only did she have a story about Stinkor, but this also got her to talk about what it was like to hunt down these figures during the heyday in the 80s.
It's so funny because He-Man, when it first came out and you started watching it, it was like gradual. People were getting into it and that. And so when you wanted the figures, we got you some of the figures for Christmas and stuff. It was easy to find. But then all of a sudden, like Prince Adam and Tila and Ram Man, and then it was just like the figures came out, certain things, and you're like, oh, I want this one and I want this one. So you go out there and the shelf would be people literally around the He-Man stuff going through trying to find the figures and going, is anybody looking for this one? I'm looking for this one. And trying to find these figures that you want. And I got so that I knew a person that used to work at Kmart, and she would let me know when their new shipments would come in. So I would go over there and pack you up and go over there to see if we could find the figures you want and that. And if I didn't get there in time, she would hide them in a certain spot for me. And I'd go over to the store and I'd go over and she'd hide it like underneath these certain towels or something. A figure that I want.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of people, you know, and trying to get the figures you wanted, and
So people are still doing that today, but it's us.
Yes.
We're the toy collectors.
The toy collectors are doing that.
So
but
we
here,
learned that from our moms.
You learned it from your mothers. I was the original toy hunter.
I love it.
And your dad would get so mad at me, go, "What are you doing? Would you just get away? Don't buy any more figures." And I got so that I had to find those figures. I was like, but he needs this one.
Well, anybody wants to know where I got it from?
So you got it from your mother.
That's amazing. So there you go. My mom, the original toy hunter. I love hearing about that. I think a lot of us as collectors now sort of remember that we could walk into the stores and just find any figure that we wanted, but I don't think that was the case, at least not according to my mom, who says that she used to spend a lot of time and making friends at the stores trying to track down the new figures just so that she can give them to me, so she can make her son happy. It's kind of amazing to see how that correlates to the way a lot of us collect today. It probably all started with parents like my mom. This has been a really fun video for me to make, and I hope it was something that was enjoyable for you guys to watch. I really have to thank my mom for agreeing to sit down. I know she's a little camera shy, so when I get a chance to actually convince her to sit down and give one of these stories and kind of go through the memories of me as a kid, I love it, and it makes me happy that I can capture it so that I can always look back on it as well. So I hope this helped to not only entertain you guys, but maybe bring up some of your own nostalgic feelings and memories for what it was like collecting Masters of the Universe or any of your favorite toys when you were a kid. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. This is the first time I've really done a compilation before, but you know, I really like these old videos that I did, and I just wanted to give them, I guess, a second chance at life. So hopefully you guys were able to find some enjoyment out of this, and I hope you guys are all having a great holiday season. Thank you guys so much for all of the support this year. I truly, truly appreciate it. And here's to Christmas, the holiday season, and beyond, with 2023 on the way. Merry Christmas, my friends. Happy holidays.